So today we have Julie Norris with us. She's an enterprise solutions consultant at Marketo. If anyone hasn't played with Marketo or had a demo of it or doesn't know much about it, I urge you to definitely look into it because the features and the functionality of that system are just way too amazing to even kind of start to share. They are our sponsor today, have the great marketing automation book on the table. Make sure you read through that. Go to their website and sign up to get content. If you're in content marketing, outside of everything they do with their platform, they're also amazing with what they do to deliver you industry relevant content. I know I enjoy their email stuff, and their email stuff is just as good as anything else out there. And you know, it's kind of weird because they do all these different things, but in every category they're very strong. So definitely get familiar with this platform, get familiar with the technology, because it's something that's probably going to come your way at some point. So Julie is an automation specialist. She has 20 years of experience in data center operations. She moved to the software side, moved to software vendor pre-sales role, and has leveraged her experience as a customer to build credibility and rapport with prospective customers, focusing on job scheduling and workload automation. Julie focuses on providing business value and addressing customers' pain points, even if they do not realize how much pain they are in with their current solutions. So we're here today, and she's going to go through tomorrow's marketer, driving engagement, experience, and revenue. So please welcome Julie Norris from Marketo.
Thank you, Adam. So I was asked to remind you, Dan Hawkins, my colleague's in the back of the room here, and we're having a drawing for two $50 gift cards. So if you'll drop your business card back there with him, we'll do that drawing at the end of the luncheon today. And I've got my business cards up here too for anybody who wants them. So we'll get there we go. Yeah, so like Adam said, you know, I found Marketo about 18 months ago, and it was that perfect storm for me. So I grew up in automation in my IT career, and then I moved over into marketing 2 hours before our company got acquired by a large software technology solution. And they're like, do you want to stay in marketing, or we can bring you back to sales and you'll be safe over there? And I'm like, no, we still need to get our message out there. So I was passionate about getting the right message to the right person at the right time. So I stayed in marketing. And I went through several different companies, and I'm like, you know, I really need to go out there and see what I can do and see what else there is. So I found Marketo and a recruiter. You know how the recruiters come and knock on your door every now and then. So I found Marketo, and I'm like, this is where I need to be. I can marry my automation passion with the marketing passion that I have, and Marketo is the perfect place to do that. So I'm going to share kind of from a general perspective today and talk about, you know, the principal rules of engagement and how tomorrow's marketer is going to be much different from today's marketer, and how important that is to be able to drive engagement all the way to where you're being able to attribute revenue to marketing activities. What a concept. So as we go through this, we'll ask some questions at the end, but I want to share some customer stories as we go through this example, and I've got several examples in here. This is meant to be a B2B, B2C, B2Human type marketing presentation. So it doesn't matter who you're marketing to, you're trying to get a human on the other end of that message to pick up that message and continue to engage with you to the outcome that you're trying to get them to. So let's talk about the future of marketing. So the quest for every marketer, whether you're B2B, B2C, B to wherever, B to B2C, some of our customers are, is how do I acquire new customers? How do I get their attention with all the noise that's going out there? And then once I have their attention, how do I grow that relationship to a point where they're ready to have a salesperson or somebody talk to them about, you know, doing some business with my company? And then once I do have them doing business, how do I keep them enthused and excited and passionate so that they want to share their story, whether it's on social sharing channels, whether it's being a customer reference, doing videos, doing customer testimonial stories, case studies? How do I get them to be a brand advocate for me? So, you know, in today's world, there's a lot of noise out there, and you probably don't realize it because, you know, there's 2,900 messages coming at a person on a daily basis. So studies have shown this, but you're only probably recognizing maybe 50 of them, and you're probably only remembering 4. So how do you cut through the noise? And, you know, when I first saw this message, I was interviewing with Marketo, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like IT was doing 20 years ago. We had to cut through the noise. It was a different kind of noise, but we still had to cut through the noise to get to the most important message. And that's what the marketer has to do today. And I had an example when I was sharing this with some of my colleagues, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. So a couple of weeks ago, it's spring break time, right? If you're doing any traveling, it's spring break time because the airports are just madness. So we took our grandkids down for a wildflower weekend. And my husband had this great idea. He's like, let's give them a disposable camera. And then they can take their own pictures during vacation, and then we'll put some books together afterwards, and they'll see the pictures they took. What an idea that was. So we take these disposable cameras out, and we hand them to them, and they're like, well, what's this? And we're like, it's a camera. You can take your own pictures. Well, where do I see the picture that I took? And then we're like, and then you have to wind it after you take a picture. Well, why do I have to wind it? And what do you mean I only get 27 pictures? I've only got 5 pictures left, and we still have 3 days. So it was just such an experience with these Gen Alpha, Gen Zers on an age that was something before digital. Something before the digital world exists. Now, if I handed them my iPad, they could do all kinds of things with it, and my mobile device, but they don't know a world that wasn't digital. So it was a big eye-opener for me, and it was fun. So, buyers' journeys are self-directed these days. So 66 to 90% of the buyer's journey, they're doing on their own. I remember, I'm old enough, and I'll probably age myself with some of the slides and some of the content in here, but I'm old enough to remember a world where you didn't have that information at your fingertips. You had to actually go to the car dealership if you were buying a car and talk to somebody and go through that mess and that pain that we all love to do, right, buying a car. But you couldn't find the information that you needed. You had to talk to a human being and had to talk to somebody and get that information out of them. So now, with all of the information that's out there, people can go out there and do their own research. And I saw this hit me in the face a couple of years ago. I was in that sales and marketing alignment challenge, right? We were trying to get everybody on the same page and talk the same language. And they said, well, why don't you go do cold calling for a while and see how fun it is? So I'm like, okay. So I had my list, and I start smiling and dialing, and nobody was answering the phone. I mean, to get somebody on the phone, out of 100 tries was maybe 5, if that. And then I got this one guy on the phone, and I'll never forget him, because he said, we had a really nice conversation. He was really cordial, a little old Texas guy. And he's like, honey, he's like, I'm smart enough to know, I appreciate you calling me, but I'm smart enough to know that if I need your solution, I can go out there and find the information that I need, and I'll contact you. So it was kind of thanks, but no thanks, and I hung up. I'm like, okay, that was interesting. But I'm like, he's absolutely right. They'll call us when they've done all of their research and they're ready to take that next step. So there's more than ever a challenge for the marketer to get that attention, to get that top of mind brand awareness out there, so they are going to call you. You are going to be on the top of their list when they're ready to take that next step. So, this is probably a journey we've all gone on in our lives, where we've gone out there to purchase a car. And just like I was talking about, it used to be you had to go to the car lot. Well, now you can do all of that information research before you ever step foot on a car lot and a sales guy comes out and tackles you immediately. But you can find out more, and I actually went on a test drive. We bought a new car last year, and I knew more about the car than the guy that was taking me on the test drive. So I was asking him about features in the car, and he's like, oh yeah, we have that. It's over here, and I'm not exactly sure what that does. And I'm like, so I didn't buy it from that dealership, but I did buy that car. So I knew exactly what I wanted. So the marketer is challenged even more now to get that information out there and to engage with those people and get them to engage with you, so that when they are ready to make that buying decision, that contract decision, that decision to go with you for your goods or services, that you're top of mind. So the other thing that they're demanding now is a personalized experience. I don't know if you watch your in-mail and the emails that you get, and how many of them are really personalized to you as your first name, even. Not only as your first name, but something that you're interested in because they've watched your behaviors. They know some of the things you've been looking at the website. How do you make that content of an email dynamic so that your marketing team can scale and they can deliver dynamic content without having to have an army of a marketing staff? One of our customers, version 1, found out that, you know, in order to achieve what their CMO wanted to achieve, she was going to have to hire 5 more people to do it. Until she brought marketing automation in, she's like, I didn't have to add to staff, and I could deliver more than what my CMO was asking for. So, you know, having that personalized experience. Are you sending out personalized emails? Are you delivering dynamic content? And, you know, the personalized experience, and this is where I'll probably date myself too, you know, everybody remembers that famous bar in Boston, right? Where one guy comes in and everybody yells, Norm, right? Everybody knew his name. I was at my sister's recently. I grew up in Central Ohio, and we drove down the main street, and lo and behold, there was the old general store. And I hadn't been up there, you know, I lived there 45 years ago. And it was still there. It was still run by the same company, the same family. And the guy that used to run it knew every one of our names when we walked in. Every Saturday night, they had a movie at the library down the street. And we would stop at the general store to get our candy before we went to the movie. He knew every single one of our names. He knew what kind of candy was our favorite. And he would converse with us and have a relationship. So, you know, building that relationship so you know your customers, you know their names, you know their likes, you know their dislikes. Being able to do that is part of the marketer's job these days. So you, more than sales, have to be the steward of that customer journey. I know we're still, you know, in that tug of war sometimes with our sales team because they're like, no, these are my customers. I'll communicate with them. I don't need marketing involved communicating with them. And you know, gradually they'll say, okay, you know, marketing is more than creating those nice fluffy little pieces of graphics and pretty little pictures to send out. They're the customer's journey, and they're the stewards of that customer's journey to get them to becoming customers. So in order to win in this new world, you really need new rules of engagement. And this was one of my favorite movies, so I had to put this slide in there. So what are those rules of engagement, and how have the rules changed? So let's take a look at them. So there's been a transformation in customer engagement. And you know, we brought the definitive guide to marketing automation today, but there's a number of definitive guides out there that Marketo provides. And some of them, you know, have to do, we put a guide out now about web personalization. Mass marketing has changed. So, you know, even I've talked to some companies over the last couple of weeks that are in the digital television industry and entertainment industry. And they're telling me about things that they're capturing on what television shows you're watching. If they offer up an ad, are you changing the channel to a different television station? And what ads should they offer up to you based on the shows and your behaviors and things that you watch on your television? And I'm like, I can't believe that information's out there. Or that they're capturing that information and mining that information and using it to, you know, give you better, more personalized ads. So mass marketing, we're not receiving the same ads anymore. So we probably don't even realize it. Is really changing to even more than the transactional marketing, but getting into that engagement marketing. How do you attract their attention and engage with them on a continual basis going forward to get them to the outcome that you want to get to? So let's take a look at this. So engagement marketing, that's what we're going to be talking about a lot. So there's 5 principles that we've introduced to engagement marketing, and there'll be a quiz at the end. So the first one, and we've kind of determined they're the ABCs of engagement marketing. So the first one is A, as individuals. And this talks about things like the dynamic content, addressing emails to the person's first name. You've got their name in your database, so why not use it? So, you know, putting this dynamic content together that can substitute that information, substitute who the account rep is, you know, who they should be talking to if they want to, you know, have a communication with you, but being able to do that personalization touch, even for anonymous visitors who are coming to your website. Now this blew me away when I first heard about it. I'm like, wait a minute, you don't even know who they are. How can you personalize content just because they came to your website? And there's a thing that we've got called web personalization. And I was talking to one of our customers, and they're getting ready to deploy that here soon. And it's where you can determine certain things from the IP address they come in from. So as individuals, you can personalize that based on their industry, their location, their geography, all kinds of things that you can glean from that IP address. And then based on what they do, I'll never forget, one of my customers one year as a different software company, he was on our advisory board, and he came up to me one time and he says, Julie, he's like, why does the website treat me as any other visitor that would come to the website? I've been a customer for years, I'm on the advisory board, you know what I'm interested in and what products I use. So can't you kind of shortcut me or give me information that's relevant to me? And I'm like, it really makes a lot of sense. We should be able to do that. So based on what they do, I'll share some stories on where our customers and how our customers are using that behavioral information that we can gather and track and determine how do we need to engage with them, what's going to attract their attention. C is continuously over time. This is not something where everybody gets married on the first date. It's something that you have to nurture over time. So once you've attracted their attention, I had some guys talk to me one time and they're like, just because they open an email doesn't mean they're ready to talk to a salesperson. So it's not that email opener and maybe not even that click on an email, but if there's successive emails and if they not only open that email but they go to the website or they download content, all of those behaviors have to be stored in a central place so you as a marketer can leverage them. So continuously over time. And not only what content are they consuming, what channels are they consuming that on? Are they somebody that is responding to emails? Or if they're like me on my personal emails, I get to them to clean them up every now and then. But if my favorite retailer is having a sale that weekend, I'm probably not going to see that email. If they sent me a push notification to the app that I've got installed on my cell phone, I'm going to be more likely to go into the store and see that. Or an SMS text message, something that's more instant. So think about the channels that over time you want to communicate on. And then direct it towards an outcome. You're trying to guide them on this journey that could take multiple channels, multiple different communication methods, but where are you trying to get them to? What's the end goal? So directing it towards an outcome, and then everywhere they are. I really like this one because it's not only everywhere they are, it's especially where they are. And we were talking about different retailers now. If you're familiar with the Retail Me Not application. So if you go drive anywhere near a shopping mall, this thing goes cha-ching, cha-ching, and it tells you what things are on sale at the shopping mall. So the beacon technology that's out there now that can detect where you are and send you instantaneous offers while they're relevant to you. So let's look at a few more details here. So one by one. So the first one is as individuals. So let me share some customer stories with you. As individuals, and we had a speaker at our regional or our sales kickoff meeting this year, and she was talking about the different generations. And even the customers that I've been talking to and the accounts that I've been talking to when I've been out there demoing Marketo, there's different generations of audiences that they're dealing with. And some of the customers, I was talking to one recently, and they were in the stationery and note cards and things of that nature, and she's like, this is our audience. She's like, the baby boomers and above are trying to let the next generations know how important a personal note is. And sending that personal note and writing that stationery and writing letters. I mean, they're not even teaching cursive in elementary schools anymore. So there's a big thing about personal writing is going away. So knowing what your audience is, what's important to them, and how you should communicate to them. So understanding these generations. So this is a nice picture, right? Spring break. Are you out on spring break here, or is it too early? Spring breaks are probably coming up, or you're planning your summer vacation, right? Probably everybody in this room is looking at this picture with different things in their mind. So, we probably don't have any college students in here, but college students, high school students, are thinking spring break time, right? I'm going to go out with my buddies and we're going to have a good old time and we're going to party on the beach. The family in the middle is thinking, I want somewhere that's going to have a beach that's safe for the kids. They can, play on the sand and build sand castles, and I want a family-friendly atmosphere. And then the couple on the right, or on the left, on your right, they're like me and my husband. We're empty nesters now. So we want somewhere quiet that we can go. We love the Sandals resorts and, things where you can pull up a chair on the beach and read a book and have a nice, quiet experience. So as a marketer, if you were marketing to this audience, you'd have to have a different message for each audience because the same message isn't going to work. So market to them as individuals. And even not only as individuals, but on the channels that they prefer. So which channels are they opening up the context on? Are they opening up their emails? Or maybe you have to hit them on multiple channels and try text messaging or push notifications or different things on the website and remarketing to them as they leave the website. And then, down here on the bottom, maybe it's a direct mail piece that's going to appeal to them because, they're going to get it in the mail, they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call a rep and start talking to them to plan the vacation versus doing everything online. So you got to know which generation, what's going to appeal to your audience that you're trying to communicate with. So as individuals. This is an example of McGraw-Hill, and we've probably all somewhere in our lives opened up a textbook and looked in the back, and it's from McGraw-Hill. Well, they're not just the textbook company. They've become a life science company. So one of their pain points was they had tens of thousands of professors that they wanted to market to. And they had an army of sales engineers and people ready to talk to them, but what they found out was the physics professor doesn't want to talk to us in the same way that the history professor does. So we have to personalize that message as individuals. So they took, who their audience was, who was in their database, and built segmentations. So then they used this segmentation to build dynamic content. So when they sent that initial email out, it was personalized for every segment that they had in their database. And they had a much higher return rate on this. So they kind of doubled their engagement out there by doing that personalized content. So the second principle is to engage people based on what they do. So this is where you're watching those behaviors. You're not only watching the behaviors, you're scoring on those behaviors. And I've talked to a lot of companies, and I'm surprised that some of them are not doing any kind of scoring. One of the things I liked about Marketo was the program library, where I could download pre-existing programs that would help me get started. So just scoring on basic things like the behaviors, the demographics, what web pages did they visit, how many times did they visit the website that week, how many emails did they open, all kinds of information that marketing automation can gather for you, then you can leverage that as a marketer. So let's look at Nice Systems. Nice Systems is a B2B company in Dallas, and they do financial, try and avoid financial crimes and safeguard their assets. So they have a vast array of content out there. They've acquired different companies, so they even have different web domains. What they wanted to do was they wanted to use that web personalization and be able to find out what industries are coming to the website. And what industry should they focus on, based on the numbers that were coming to the website. So they picked a couple of top industries and they said, okay, if anybody comes to the website from these industries, they're getting personalized content. And you might ask, how do I do that as an anonymous person if I don't know who they are? And that's where that reverse IP lookup thing comes in. The technology comes in and says, I know what geography they're in. Maybe this is a worldwide company, they knew what area of the world that they were in, so they could market to them when they had special events going on in the US or Germany or wherever in the world, and they could market to them based on the industry that they were in. So they're doing all sorts of web personalization out there, and what they found was people were converting 5 times higher than the average rate that they had without doing any personalization on the website. They also achieved 30% of their goal conversions on that website because of the personalization that what they were doing. They were getting people to pay more time, spend more time on the website, and then looking at more pages. So they found the visiting time was up, the amount of content they were consuming was up. So they're doing a lot of personalization with our web personalization capabilities to achieve the results that they want to achieve. And then payoff.com, another one, is based on what they do. And actually I had to go out here and look at this one. They were doing some personality profiles, and one of the things they really liked was the progressive profiling. So I don't know if you looked at the forms that you're using today, and I've seen some forms on some websites and they're like a mile long. It's like, who's going to take the time to fill out all of those forms to get to download the content that they want to download? Just ask for 2 or 3 things. So it was, I think, 8 to 10 questions that they asked on this payoff.com site to get your financial personality. And I was curious. Curiosity got me, so they got me engaged. So I went out there and filled out the form. And this is what it came back as. I'm a free spirit. And my husband would totally agree with this because several years ago I turned over all the bill paying duties to him because I would forget about them. I would be traveling so much and then the bills wouldn't get paid on time. So I'm like, fine, you do all of that. And he'll also say I'm a free spirit when it comes to traveling too, because I have taken the map and got us totally lost on some of our visits that we've gone on. So just by asking a few questions, payoff.com got some information about me. They got some personal information that I was willing to share. And this goes back to that generational. Some generations are more willing to share information than others. And even within the generation, you may find some people that are more reluctant to share information than others are. So I gave them my information, and they followed me. And some people get annoyed at the remarketing, that marketers are doing out there these days, but I get annoyed if it's not relevant to me. If it's relevant to me and it's got messages that are specific to the information I filled out on the form, I know that they're listening to me and they're trying to engage with me on a personal level. So it's based on what I'm doing. So it was kind of interesting, and I actually saw this at Marketo when I was interviewing with Marketo. I was downloading every definitive guide that I could get my hands on out there and downloading content and looking at web pages, and I'd go through the several rounds of interviews and I'd talk to my hiring manager and I'm like, have you not been seeing what I'm doing out there? And she's like, I didn't even think to look at your record in our database to find out what kinds of things you are doing. So it's really good to leverage that information in a positive way from a marketing standpoint. So the third one is continuously over time, the C. So it's not that first date, we're going to get married, I'm ready to hand over this money to you as a business. So how do you continuously over time? So I actually got my first glimpse of this. I worked at JCPenney for 20 years early in my career. And we were doing some IT moves, and I had to get really down into the understanding of the applications we were moving. And it was a marketing and merchandising application. And I had no idea that they were tracking your customer history in a database. And it would determine what catalogs they were going to send out when they were in the catalog business. And if you registered on their website for their wedding registry, 9 months, 18 months later, you were getting baby stuff. The baby catalogs were being sent to you, or the home builder catalogs, or the home goods catalogs. So continuously over time, it could be that they're ready to get that first credit card. Then maybe later they're ready to start building their first home, buying that first home. Then later in life, when they start having families, they're ready for some life insurance. So, as they mature along that curve, how are you marketing to them, based on who your audience is? So this is an example of Charles Schwab, and we all know who Charles is, right? So their pain point was they were trying to bring new advisors on board. And it was a long process. If you think of a sales funnel, their process was 2 to 3 years long. By the time they got somebody who was ready to go out on their own, ready to take that next step, it could be 2 or 3 years. So they had to nurture those leads along until they were ready to take that step. And then once they did become a Charles Schwab advisor, they wanted to help grow their business. So they had 2 factors that they were looking at, but some of those took time as they were maturing and getting their business started, getting investors, getting clients, and building up their reputation. It was a long process, so they wanted to continually market to them and provide them the tools that they needed to be successful as Charles Schwab advisors. So they were able to do this out there and definitely increase their engagement scores. So the fourth one is engage people directed towards that outcome. Where are you trying to get them to go? And there's different outcomes that you might have. So if you're trying to bring new customers on board, the first step is to attract them. Once you've got their attention, you want to provide some educational materials. Give them some information that's going to help them make that decision. And I worked at some technology companies for a while, and I would see this. Once we had them opening the emails and visiting the web pages, then we'd give them different content that was going to give them deeper into the products that we knew they were looking for. And then once we got them further engaged and they kept engaging with us on that kind of content, we said, okay, now let's give them some analyst studies or some customer case studies. So you gradually increase the type of content you're delivering based on the journey they're going through. And then, if they're trying to renew, how are they using the product today? Are they using it to its fullest advantage? Are they getting the ROI from them? How can I help them be more successful and grow that business? Maybe they're ready to buy a different product or service from you and take that next step in their evolution. And then getting them to become that advocate. Getting their trust, making sure that they're successful, sharing, their experiences with you on the social channels. There's a lot of marketers that we talked to today that haven't really leveraged those Facebook custom audiences and getting people to share their positive experiences on their social networks. And then getting those referrals from them and those customer success stories. I don't think I've ever been at a company that we have so many customers willing to step forward and do success stories to speak at our summit that's coming up in May. We have to selectively choose which of the presentations we're going to be able to fit into our summit exercise because we get so many submissions, people wanting to get up and share what they're doing from a marketing perspective. So CA Technologies, this is a story that's near and dear to my heart because when I got acquired after I went into marketing, it was by CA. So I was in a division that they had 4 other products that did what our product did. We were kind of taking their business away, so they gobbled us up. It never happened before. So CA was using our technology, and I was a product marketer at the time. This was before they had Marketo. So I got to experience the dysfunction when we would go to trade shows and spend hours upon hours on the trade show floor, but the leads were not ever getting back to the salespeople that could react to them. So we had a leaky funnel. So the sales leads were getting lost somewhere in the middle. We were just doing, batch and blast, just getting some kind of message out there. We didn't care if it was the right message for the right audience. So we were kind of dysfunctional. They brought Marketo in a couple of years ago, totally revamped the entire marketing organization. Now they have 11 people doing marketing, and they set up 23 different nurture streams in Marketo and they had like 4 to 6 different streams. And the nurture streams are kind of like this process where you're attracting their attention, they're engaged, now you're trying to get them to make that final decision, do the evaluation, and then become a customer. So they set 23 of these up in 4 weeks and are driving some great results from it for 9 global business units and 45 solution groups. And the results that they were getting was a 400% increase in marketing qualified leads they were passing off to sales. Now, I have some really, really good friends that are still at CA. And I would talk to them and they're like, yeah, things have changed a lot. We're getting better leads from sales, we're getting higher quality leads from sales, and they're coming quicker. So we don't have things leaking through the funnel and opportunities that we're missing to our competitors. Now, Detroit Pistons, I'm a big fan, not necessarily basketball, but sports fan. So Detroit Pistons is part of Palace Entertainment Groups. And they're both a B2B and a B2C company, and they're using Marketo, and one of their use cases was they wanted to get people to renew their season ticket holders. So they wanted to get them to renew. So they wanted to get the right message to them at the right time. So they were using several different ways to get those messages out, whether they were sending them text messages when they were sitting in their seats at a basketball game, or they were tying their messages to their renewals, and they were getting those renewals. So they were able to get 90% renewal rates, which is something was unheard of there before they were doing engagement marketing. And then 30% increase in year-over-year ticket sales. So we've got several customers that are along this vein, and what they're finding is, they've got other venues and other things that are going on at those venues that they have, so selling them concert tickets and other event tickets that are going on. They're using engagement marketing to continuously, over time, bring those customers back to that venue for various different events, not just the basketball games. And then the fifth one, the last one, is engage people everywhere they are. And this one, like I said, is near and dear to my heart because, people of different generations, and we're all using different devices now. And how many of you, if I had you raise your hands in here, how many of you have your mobile phone next to you when you go to bed at night? Whether it's on the nightstand, right? That's kind of the world that we're living in these days. I'm right there with you. So, are you communicating to people on all the channels that you can be communicating to them on? And mobile is one. Last year, Marketo took a big step forward with our mobile capabilities. Not only for a mobile app to do push notifications, in-app messages, but to track the behaviors. How long are they in the app? If they're in an app and your app has all kinds of things that they can do, what are they doing in that app? So that's going to give you behavioral information. As a marketer, you're going to know what kinds of things you want to market to them on. I was talking to a financial company, and I always download their app. So if I find out I'm demoing to a company and they have a mobile app, I always download it and see if I can get a log on and even log on to it and see what kinds of things can I do on that app, and what could you as a marketer do if you knew what kinds of things they were consuming on that app or doing on that app. How long were they in the app? So that kind of technology exists today. So MyFitnessPal is a mobile app company, right? So they've got a mobile app. You can download it. I've got it on my phone here. And what they were doing before Marketo was they were sending out 4 emails a year. So email was the only channel that they were using. And they said, well, what if we had a blog? And now they've got a blog that's called Hello Healthy. So they've increased their blog traffic. They've got 4 million people following them on this blog. They've got over 100 emails, 100 million emails they send. They're one of our highest email volume customers out there. So they've really ramped up not only the emails that they're sending, but they're sending it specific to the activities that the people are involved in, because they've got all that mobile app tracking behavioral data in the database. And then they've got 65 million app downloads. So there's 65 million people, they can find out what they're doing in the app. I've got apps on my phone that I haven't been into in ages. So even, using some in-app messages or some push notifications to say, hello, I'm still here. Are you still trying to, get healthy this year? Is that still one of your goals? So they can reach out to them on those multiple channels and try and get them to engage with them. And one of the things that we did last summer, I got to work on an account, and they should be becoming a customer here soon, was beacon technology. And this was something I tried to tell my CMO years ago. I'm like, proximity marketing, if you've ever Googled proximity marketing, I'm like, we could go to our competitors' trade shows and sit in the Starbucks and have this transmitter and send people invitations to our hospitality suite. And he's like, that technology doesn't exist. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And I'd show him the websites. And I came to Marketo, and last year when we got the beacon technology partnership, I sent him an email. I'm like, guess what? We can do this now. And being from a retail background, I'm thinking Black Friday. How important would it be for somebody to know what areas of the stores people were spending their time in, and being able to market based on that knowledge? So there's a lot of, beacon technology people are looking at to try and stay away from that creepy factor. When it first came out, there's a little bit of a creepy factor to it, that you're watching me and you know where I am at. That's kind of scary. But everywhere they are, and especially where they are. So MyFitnessPal has had great success with it. So engagement marketing. It's about building those personal and lifelong relationships with the people you're trying to market to. So what's the first principle? A, as individuals, right? So anybody know what B is? Based on what they do. I heard it somewhere. And C is continue. You guys are good. We can certify you. Continuously over time. And D is directed towards an outcome. And what's E? Everywhere they are. So if you're only using certain channels today, you might want to think about using different channels. And then, how can you leverage that information? So everywhere they are. So I want to invite you all. We have, I don't know, Anna, if you've been to the Marketo Summit or not, definitely put it on your calendar. I have gone to trade shows for 20 years. I have never been to a trade show or a customer event, I'll call it. So I've never been to a customer event where everybody's not bugging out on the last day to get to the airport and go home. I went to our event last year, it was in downtown San Francisco, but we've outgrown that space. So this year we have to go to Vegas. They're remodeling the space. But at the end of the event, I'm like, wait a minute, isn't the event over? And everybody was like hanging out. We had purple beanbag chairs they were all sitting around in and just not leaving. So I've never been to an event that not only had that kind of feel about it, but the amount of presentations that our customers do at this event is probably unprecedented. So if you're available in May, you want to go out to Vegas, we'd love to have you join us at our Marketo Summit. We're expecting over 6,000 marketing, we call them the Marketing Nation. So we're expecting over 6,000 of our 60,000 members of our Marketing Nation to be there in person, sharing ideas and sharing the successes that they've had doing engagement marketing. So we can get more information. There's some more information on the back table about that. So I want to thank you and open it up to any questions you might have. Everybody's quiet. Good. I answered every question you have about engagement marketing, right? The smallest. We started as a small business company. That was who Marketo catered to. So I don't know if Dan knows what the smallest size is, but if you've got a database and you've got people that you want to market to, we had several iterations and kind of editions of the product that would allow small businesses to use the product, and it wasn't financially restrictive for them. So Marketo started in the small business space.
Yeah, just to give you all a perspective of that, we work with companies that range in size from 1 to 10 employees all the way up to the GEs, the Googles of the world. In fact, last year, 4 out of 5 of Forbes' hottest startups were all Marketo customers. So we work very heavily in the startup and the small business space. Definitely can support from a small business perspective. So.
Yeah, we have pricing models for all ranges. Question?
Can you tell a little bit about the database and IT integration? I'm sure you've got magic tools that will go into a badly organized database that lacks customer identifiers and make perfect sense of it in no time flat.
Yeah,
Tell us about that magic one.
Yeah, the integration. I love having that conversation because I came from IT. So, Marketo's one of the few solutions that you don't have to have a whole lot of IT involvement other than getting that initial integration to take place. So if you've got a CRM, and some of our customers don't have a customer relationship management solution. So if you're running Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, we have native integration to those tools. So automatic connectors that will bring over whatever information you want to bring over. We have other customers that want to integrate to other technology platforms out there. So if you go to launchpoint.marketo.com, we have over 500 partners out there, and some of these partners are for data connectors. So Informatica is one that will help customers connect databases that they have that may not be CRMs, but they've got behavioral information or purchase information that they want to include and share some of that with Marketo. So we've got some customers out there, some partners out there that will help with that integration. But typically, once you have that initial CRM integration in place and they've put the cookies on the website, there's not a whole lot of IT involvement from a marketer's aspect. We believe strongly that we've got to make the marketers powerful and not have to make the marketers rely on IT to do something for them, because that typically elongates the process. It's not real time. There's just too many factors that come into play there. Yes?
I work at a marketing certification station or part of your agency partner program.
Okay, great.
And one of the biggest challenges that we see with our clients is how do they staff on their end. Typically, our go-to-market strategy for assisting them with their content and strategy for Marketo is about where is there still gaps in what we have. We're not necessarily there to do work that you can perform individually. But I'm always curious as to where their gaps and resources lie in terms of how to staff and what the need is on their end from a people perspective.
From a people perspective, it varies. It depends on how much you're wanting to implement and how quickly you want to implement it. So some of them will start small and they'll say, okay, well, I'm new to marketing automation, so I just want to start with getting my emails in line and getting that strategy in place, so I'm not doing batch and blast, so I'm just doing personalized emails and starting small. So we kind of believe in this crawl, walk, run, and we'll run as fast as you want to when you're ready to do that, but let's start small and teach you how to crawl first and kind of jointly build a plan with them and have a consultancy with them to find out, okay, what is it we're trying to achieve in the first 6 months, in the first year, and kind of map that out for them. And then they can figure out what their staffing needs are going to be going forward. So they may not have budget for additional staff this year if they feel like they're going to need it. But like I said, version 1, you know, she brought the example to us. She was going to need to add 5 staff. And then she switched from the product she had to Marketo with the automation. And that's the key, is the automation, because you can do things in a matter of minutes or hours with Marketo that would take days to do with other solutions. And that's what our customers have been reporting back to us, that it simplifies things for them. So it's usually a collaboration and a discussion that we have with them to determine what it is that they're trying to do.